So sorry for how my mic sounds in videos lately. I don't really know why it sounds like this, but Infidex told me it sounds like I'm in space, and I kind of like that. So thanks. But I'm using an older mic, so hopefully it sounds better in this video. But the Arrowverse seasons for the year are over now, and I mean the core shows like Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, Arrow, Black Lightning, Batwoman, and Flash. So I'm going to do what I didn't do last year and rank all 6 of them. That said, I am working on my probably biggest video yet, where I'll be trying to rank every single DC season that is even kind of tied to the Arrowverse. So like all the core shows, Smallville, 90s Flash, Constantine, Doom Patrol, Titans, everything. So hopefully that comes out sooner than later. But yeah, let's get into this ranking. So in 6th place I have Legends of Tomorrow Season 5. Now admittedly the show did have a slight step up from Season 4 this year, which I think Season 4 was genuinely terrible. There wasn't a lot of redeemable things in that season, but Season 5 wasn't really a step up by much in my opinion. It still was plagued by a lot of the problems, and the writers still kind of prioritized comedy and being crazy and wacky over actual good storytelling and character development, and as long as the writers do that, I just can't see the show being something I enjoy. But the show obviously has gotten itself a new group of fans from its newer seasons, so I'm just going to have to make peace with that. I'm insanely annoyed that they took Ray off the show. It's clear Brandon Routh didn't want to leave. It's disrespectful to him and the character, and he's practically an OG Arrowverse character. He showed up the same year that the Arrowverse formed, in Arrow Season 3, when Flash Season 1 was coming out as well. I also think killing him off in Crisis would have made Crisis better, it would have made the characters more impactful, his leaving, and it would have been just a better send-off for him. But speaking of Crisis, I also kind of hated that there were practically no tie-ins to the crossover this season. Almost every other show made a genuine attempt to make the crossover felt in the second half, or for Legends of Tomorrow in their whole season. And one of the aspects of the Arrowverse this year that I really appreciate is a lot of the showrunner and writers' attempts to make Crisis have a lasting effect throughout the shows. But as usual, the writers of Legends kind of just decided they don't want to do that, and instead went out of their way and just did the kind of, we don't do crossovers joke that they do every year now, which is kind of just annoying. Like, come on guys, your show was literally founded on a crossover, so why you gonna be like this? But I felt that what they did with Bayrod about halfway through the season, trying not to spoil, but I felt that was probably the most interesting part of the season. I also did really like what they did with Sawyer this time around, and I'm hoping the show will kind of reinvent itself for the 6th season, since we seem to be going cosmic with aliens and all of that sort of stuff. But I've had hopes for this show before, and they've always kind of been a letdown. I'm sorry to anyone who's a huge fan of the show. I just, Season 2 and 3 were so good, and knowing that the show can be great from seeing those seasons, it just feels like they do the bare minimum a lot of the time. In 5th place is Supergirl Season 5. Now I think this season was a colossal step down from Season 4. Last season we had Supergirl be one of the best Arrowverse shows, to becoming one that is ultimately incredibly forgettable and underwhelming. But that said, I actually respect a hell of a lot of what they did this season. The writers devoted so much to showing how Crisis affected the show and the characters, and having things genuinely get shaken up and change. They also committed to using Lex Luthor this year, which I loved. Kara and Jean's new costumes were great. There was a couple episodes after Crisis that is one of the best runs of episodes I think the show's ever had, where we saw the effects of Crisis, we saw Winn coming back, we saw the 100th, we even saw Alex becoming Supergirl in the VR world. These are some of the coolest and most interesting things we've seen from the show at all, and the season kind of reminds me of Arrow Season 7, where it has some of the show's absolute best, but it also has some things in there that bring the whole thing down. Like Leviathan, for example, might actually be my least favourite main villains of the entire show. Even after seeing the whole season, I'm still not entirely clear on what their whole point was, or what they were doing, or what they were up to. They also just kept coming in and out of the storyline, like they were never really coherent or there for the whole time. It just felt like they weren't very important, just kind of another random villainous group. And on top of this, I really wasn't a fan of how they handled Dana. It felt like they were just causing drama between her and Kara for the sake of causing drama, and this is another thing that just brought so much of the season down. I also don't really understand what they were trying to do with Brainiac 5. So yeah, in my opinion, the season is just kind of filled up with a lot of wasted potential and odd writing choices. And 4th place, and this is the hardest one to place, but I'm choosing Batwoman Season 1 to go here. And honestly though, if circumstances were different concerning real world stuff, then this would probably easily have been number 3. But just, there's some stuff that you probably know what happened, Ruby Rose leaving as Batwoman and all that just really make this hard to watch now, I guess. But I think for the most part, this season was genuinely good and enjoyable. Like, Alice is possibly a top 10 Arrowverse villain. The story throughout the season was very compelling. The sets looked different and more expensive than what we're used to in the Arrowverse. Kind of remind me of Supergirl Season 1, where it has its own aesthetic and kind of stands out. But it also took just a bunch of very unique directions. Like, it was more so a Batwoman Rogues season than one villain. Like, Alice wasn't really the villain throughout. Hush wasn't really the villain throughout. We kept getting a bunch of different villains, and it didn't really feel like there was a main villain. But that's probably because, with coronavirus, the whole season got cut short, and we didn't get a definitive ending. So I'm assuming they would have chosen either Hush or Alice to be the final villain of the season. But the first 3 episodes also do something very different, with playing with how much time is passing in a way we don't usually see. Like, Elseworlds happened about 2 years ago at this point, about a year and a half ago, and so the first 3 episodes of Batwoman were very much kind of building up to Elseworlds, and then building up to catching up with the rest of the Arrowverse in time for Crisis, so that was pretty interesting. But unfortunately, Ruby Rose isn't playing Kate anymore, and from Season 2 onwards, our Batwoman will be a brand new character called Ryan Wilder, and this is why I have to place the season here, because if what has been reported is correct, then the next season will be completely different. It'll be like a soft reboot. So what happens in Season 1 will be almost impossible to watch, because nothing of what happens here matters. None of the relationships or plot points will matter or get a resolution. This is basically a standalone season. It's like a random first season of a show that got cancelled, and then Season 2 is actually a brand new show that just happens to share the same name. It's annoying. But Batwoman held more potential at the end of its first season, I think either Supergirl or Legends did at the end of their first season. So it's unfortunate, but, things play in crazy ways, I guess. In third place, I have The Flash Season 6. Now, like I said, if things played out differently, then this season will be number 4. But the weird thing is, Flash going into Season 7 is actually in some of the same places that Batwoman will be in, mainly due to, issues with Hartley Sawyer. Because, Ralph isn't going to be on the show anymore. The people in charge have just said they won't be recasting, and they'll just get rid of Ralph completely. He's not going to be around anymore. And since so much of this season was about setting up Sue Dibney and her story with Ralph, it's just a whole lot of wasted screen time. And that's going to be given to characters now that aren't around anymore. It's kind of annoying, and considering Crisis on Infinite Earths has a lot of these problems as well now, where they set up things that aren't going anywhere, such as Ryan, Troy, Kate and Kara's friendship, the Paragons, a lot of that sort of stuff that ended up being wasted. I think this year for the Arrowverse just isn't going to be great to look back on. Obviously my problem with this season isn't just Ralph. As a whole, I didn't dig this season near as much as I wanted to, and I didn't dig it near as much as a lot of other people did. I thought this was a huge step up from Season 5 and a decent step up from Season 4, but there still is a bunch of stuff that needs to be improved going forward. The first 8 episodes focusing on Bloodwork and Barry getting ready for Crisis is one of the best mini-arcs this show has ever had. That gave me serious hope that the show was improving. But then the second half with Eva and Mirror Iris and all that stuff was more or less on par with what we could expect from Season 4. So going forward, I'd love to see more like Bloodwork and less like Eva. And also, please stop teasing Godspeed. Either actually use him or stop with the stupid "he's coming soon" stuff. So in second place is Black Lightning Season 3. And first off, I know that Black Lightning is one of the Arrowverse shows that flies under the radar consistently. It is the smallest fandom, it generally doesn't get a lot of attention. I know a lot of this is due to most people not really considering it an Arrowverse show, especially till this year, with Crisis kind of properly bringing him in. And honestly, if you don't watch Black Lightning, I really, really recommend picking it up. The seasons are shorter than the other shows, and there's also 3 of them, and year after year, it's been one of the best comic book shows out there. Quality-wise, this season is actually probably the best of the year. But my bias is throwing it in second. Probably know it's first already. But the villain of the season is one of the best we've had from any of the shows, in my opinion, which is Gravedigger. Jefferson's new suit is also so good, and he's as badass as ever. And then there's certain characters like Khalil or Painkiller who continually prove why they're some of the most complex characters in these shows. And man, the Crisis tie-in. It was a normal episode of Black Lightning sandwiched between Crisis parts 2 and 3, and it felt like a big comic book kind of thing where the main comic book story is happening in the Justice League comics, and then what's happening in the Justice League comics is so big and so important that we're seeing effects of it in the smaller solo character comics. That's what it felt like. It felt like big shit is going on in the multiverse, and Black Lightning's world and characters who don't even know there is a multiverse or any other heroes out there are being exposed to it due to the red skies. Then that episode also had a sense of worry and doom, and just a looming threat that not many episodes of TV can accomplish. I was so surprised by it. But I don't really have any complaints about this season at all. When it's at its best, it's fantastic, and when it's not, it's still pretty damn enjoyable and worth your time, in my opinion. So check Black Lightning out if you haven't. But in first place is Arrow Season 8, and if you know me or you know this channel, then you know this was coming. I have serious gripes with this season. How they handled certain characters, how Crisis handled Oliver, and like 20 other things. But this was Arrow's final ending. And there were enough things in this season that I loved and couldn't get enough of to make this season my favourite of the year. Like episodes 1, 2, 5, 7, and 10 had me in ways that only Arrow can do. And even episodes 3, 4, and 6 had their moments. Episode 9, which was Green Arrow and the Canaries, didn't grip me in a way I hoped, and a big gripe of mine from the season is there was so much focus devoted to Mia and setting up the future characters, when every week it feels like Green Arrow and the Canaries is less and less likely to be happening. So the fact that they dedicated so much of Arrow's final season to setting up a show that wasn't already in the bag kind of feels reckless and stupid to me. And then maybe Green Arrow and the Canaries will still happen, or if it does happen, it seems like it's going to be completely different to what was teased in Arrow. But it's still not confirmed, you know, and the fact we're this far along and it still hasn't been confirmed doesn't bode well. But like I said, there was enough in this season to still have me crying and laughing in between. A little Slade Wilson being brought back would be nice, but they brought back enough full characters to satisfy, in my opinion. And it also might not have been a perfect final ending, but it was one that I was constantly entertained watching. So that's my ranking of all 6 Arrowverse seasons from this year. Now, I know there'll be a bunch in there that's controversial, but let me know how you'd rank them, if you agree with me and if you don't. And thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, and all of that. And I hope you have a great day.